Hey guys, it's Joe here. Time to get sloppy with it. Who's this naughty little minx on the screen? I shouldn't say she's naughty. Maybe she's a little bit naughty. She does kind of seem to infringe copyright now and then. Obviously, an absolutely beautiful woman. I'm saying that unironically. I think she is very pretty to look at. Bless her. Um, Good looking lady Denims. So the time has come today to read the Denims lawsuit. I've been putting this off a little bit because it's the longest one. I think it's 84 pages. I previously read, you know what, before I say that, I just want to say huge thank you to everybody who's been watching my videos, commenting. I really appreciate you guys, and especially the Chad 4 subscribers. You guys are the best, but all of you really appreciate it. And please, please comment and tell me what kind of videos you'd like to see, because I'm running out of ideas. Hopefully this drama escalates and then I'll have some ideas. But yeah, this is going to be the third part of the series where I read the lawsuit. Previously, I read the Caseytron lawsuit first. That was the shortest one. It was about 50 pages. Then I read the Frogan one. That one's been getting quite a few views, so thank you for that. And when I read the second lawsuit, I realized that most of the lawsuit is copy and pasted from the other lawsuit because there's a lot of information which is relevant to all lawsuits. There's also a lot of irrelevant information in the lawsuits which I was quite critical of. I don't think it needs to be there. I think it's needless bloating for the document. But anyway, the point of all of this is that there's going to be a lot of stuff that I'm going to skip over because it's been repeated in the KCtron video. So if you want to really get an in-depth view of what's in the lawsuit, I recommend you watch the KCtron video because in that one I went through everything, and then when I did the Frogan video I skipped over the stuff which I'd read in the previous video. So yeah, hope you like this video. Let's get into the lawsuit and see what Ethan Klein has to say about denims. One more point, I'm going to give my usual disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal expert. I do have some knowledge of the law, but it's mostly from a British standpoint. I studied law for 4 years in the UK, so I do know more than the average person, but I don't take my word as gospel or legal advice, obviously. So let's get into this. I guess Denim's real no, that this is the name of Ethan Klein's lawyer. I don't know what Denim's real name is. Alexandra Marwa Saber, aka Marwa Talat Abdelmonem. Sorry, Denims, I'm definitely not pronouncing your name correctly, my queen. Yeah, so it's this lady Alexandra or Marwa or Denims, I guess I'll just call her Denims because it's easier, versus TED Entertainment, that is Ethan Klein's company. And I'll probably refer to TED Entertainment as Ethan or Healer or Ethan and Healer because it's pretty much the same thing. Okay. And they're calling this one The Nightmare on Denim Street. They do have a funny title because Denims, on her stream, she has this sign that says Denim Street, and you can see her empty chair reacting to Ethan's video, presumably. And they start out every lawsuit with some pretty damning quotes from the lovely ladies. So these are going to be some Denims quotes, and I quote, "We're relying on you to stay live so we don't have to give the nuke views." Yeah, I'm going to stream it. Since he's confirmed it's coming out today, I'm going to stream it. Just going to check that I'm recording here because my microphone sometimes falls out. Sorry about that, guys. One more point before we truly get into it. I'm going to have to stop and slurp my drink a couple of times because I did the KC-tron video and it was an hour and 15 minutes and I didn't have a drink next to me and my mouth got really dry by the end reading all of that document. This is an 80-page document. We'll go to the second quote. "Well guys, if you enjoyed not giving any views to that terrible video, give me a follow, subscribe, throw a prime if you like my content." So, two quotes from Denims here, and I actually really like how they've laid this out. The funny titles are great. I've been critical of some of the petty stuff in the lawsuits, which I don't think is necessary, and I've repeatedly said I think that's going to annoy the judge and the jury potentially. But I think to have just a snappy, funny title is fine. Like, that's not sort of straying into unprofessionality. And I like how they start these documents with these incredibly damning quotes that are like just absolute nails in the coffin in terms of copyright infringement. So let's just go over these again. We're relying on you to stay live so we don't have to give the nuke views. So she's reading a comment there, and then she agrees with it. She says she's going to stream it. And then this part's important. She says, if you enjoyed not giving any views to that terrible video, um, we'll split this into two parts. So this is important because she's providing a market substitute, and she's acknowledging that she knows full well that she's taking away views from Ethan Klein, reducing his revenue, causing him monetary loss, I guess. So that's important. And then the second part of this quote, she's saying, give me a follow, subscribe, throw a prime. So she's soliciting donations, i.e. monetary gain, from streaming Ethan's content. So there's two parts to this that are really looking bad for her in terms of copyright infringement. So yeah, a lot to say about the second page there. Introduction. Okay, I'm going to be skipping over this because this is copy and pasted from the three lawsuits, but this, if you want to get the full take on this, go to the Caseytron video. I've already said that, but I'll summarize it quickly. So this is talking about how Ethan Klein was in this 2017 case where somebody sued him for copyright infringement and he won, and that case ended up being a sort of landmark case for defining fair use online and what constitutes fair use. And then they're talking about how reaction videos that are more akin to a group viewing session do not constitute fair use. And group viewing session is a term that they'll repeatedly use because it's a quote from the Klein v. Hoss case. Okay, this case involves group viewing session hosted by defendant DENIMS, and they're giving her legal name, and they're saying it's the content Nuke Hassan Piker, which was copyrighted by Ethan Klein prior to the release. This part is just, I'm going to go over this quickly because I've already covered it, but they're also suing 10 moderators of the H3 Snark Reddit, which is a hate Reddit against Ethan, and these people are listed as does because they don't know their correct identities, but presumably they're going to try and find out these people's identities in the interim between the court case if it goes to court. So that's what this part's, and they're saying lazy reaction videos here. Denims gives brief and sporadic observations. Okay. Denims will watch long, unadulterated portions of the works and briefly pause to give short surface level and often repetitive observations that provide little to no new information, new aesthetics, new insights or understandings on the original works. And this is a quote from the Andy Warhol case, which is a landmark case in intellectual property from 2023 apparently. Oh, so it's the Andy Warhol Foundation, not, this was obviously after Warhol died. But anyway, they're going to repeatedly refer to this case because it sets a precedent for what is fair use. And then they're just saying that Denims provides nothing. Denims provides sporadic and brief commentary. On the rare occasions she shows factual basis for the claim, her statements are refuted by the source itself. Such misinformation fails to serve copyright's goal of enriching public knowledge. I think this is kind of new stuff that's not in the other ones. Okay, then they do the empty chair reaction. This is mentioned in the Frogan lawsuit as well. I'm not sure if it was in the Casey-tron one. Maybe Casey-tron doesn't do that much chair reacting. And just skimming over this part. Okay, they're referring to Campbell v. Acuff Rose Music. That's another landmark intellectual property case. And when they refer to these cases, it's because they're relying on, in the UK, what do we call it? I forget the name. It's a Latin term, but judges sort of talk about their rationale. Is it the ratio? But anyway, it's sort of how they got to their conclusion. And when there's a big sort of solid case like this, you can quote that to reinforce your legal argument for a future case like this one. This lawsuit is to hold Denims accountable for her infringement and the H3 Snark mods accountable for materially contributing to her infringement. I've said this in the previous videos, but this stuff about the H3 Snark mods is absolutely useless if they can't identify them. All they seem to know about them is their Discord handles and their Reddit handles. Okay, and this is just saying the Copyright Act 17 USC 101. That's just the relevant law that's been broken here, or I guess maybe broken isn't the right word, but it's sort of the legislation, I guess. Then they're talking about the jurisdiction of the court. This is all just procedural stuff. And the venue, you've got to have all this in the lawsuit or it doesn't sort of make sense. And then they're saying TEI is based in California, Denims is based in California. This is all just jurisdiction stuff. And then they talk about these H3 Snark mods, and this is copy pasted from the other two lawsuits. And pretty much all it says is all the information they know about these 10 Reddit mods, and most of it's very little. So for example, this first one, they know she's female apparently, and they know that she had the username Ozempic Dealer, and also another Discord handle called Yogi Bear X, and it's just for all these 10 mods, it's just a list of their Discord handles. This is not going to be relevant unless they can actually identify these people with their legal names and locate them. Some of these people could be in like China or Russia or countries that aren't going to give a hoot about this. Okay, so now the factual allegations, background of TEI. This is just about the history of Ethan and Gila and how they've built a successful business. This stuff is kind of relevant to the case. And then they're talking about the Hoss v. Klein case, where Ethan successfully defeated a copyright claim against him. And this is all relevant to the case. This is stuff that I covered in the Casey-tron video if you want to check it out. Okay, so now we're going to get into the juicy stuff. And I've repeatedly said this in previous videos. Sorry if I repeat myself, but it's just shocking how they can use this really cavalier, like petty, insulting language in a lawsuit. I don't think it really helps them. Okay, so Denims, this is the title of the section about Denims. Denims, the alt-left's answer to Kellyanne Conway. I don't think a lot of judges know the term alt-left, and probably a lot of judges don't know or care who Kellyanne Conway is. If you don't know, Kellyanne Conway is one of the women who helped Trump get elected in 2016, I believe, and she was his campaign manager, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, but she actually did a great job with the Trump campaign. Obviously, he won that election, so I guess they're trying to say that Kellyanne Conway is a radical or something. Anyway, they started by saying denim LARPs, i.e. live action role play. I don't think you want to use language like this in a lawsuit. You could just say like she pretends, but LARP is such like internet language. I think like a lot of jury aren't going to know what it means. A lot of judges aren't going to know what it means. I would say something like Denims sells herself as a revolutionary, or she pretends to be a revolutionary. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So Denims LARPs as a revolutionary from the comfort of her bedroom in California. She's a prolific purveyor of misinformation and speaks with great confidence on topics where her knowledge leaves much to be desired. Denims repeatedly inserts herself into public controversies by employing poor judgment, knee-jerk contrarianism, and a consistent impulse to defend the indefensible, including copyright infringement, terrorism, and extremism. This is not relevant to the lawsuit at all. It's funny and it's true, but it's not relevant to copyright infringement. Okay, the next part. Denims is one of the most loyal and ardent defenders of Hassan Piker. By the way, Hassan Piker is not a defendant in this lawsuit. I don't know why they've included all this stuff about him. The only relevance he has to this case is that Ethan made the video about him, which was copyright infringed. Just gonna have a drink here. Okay, Hassan. Hassan is the most prominent alt-left streamer on Twitch. Much like Scientologists engage in fair game, I don't know what that means. Denims ruthlessly attacks with reckless abandon anyone who disagrees with her or Hassan. She parrots Hassan's style, rhetoric, and content strategy. Completely irrelevant to the lawsuit, in my opinion. She regularly streams React content with minimal transformational commentary. Okay, that's relevant to the lawsuit because that illustrates a pattern of behavior of her infringing copyright, which is what the lawsuit's about. As such, she has assumed a leading role in Hassan's waiting room, a collective of streamers who cultishly follow Hassan and parasitically leech off his audience by streaming before and after him. True but not relevant. On November 17, 2023, in a now deleted video, Denims read Osama bin Laden's letter to America in its entirety on stream. She frequently expressed agreement and support for the letter, such as, they're quoting her now, America deserved 9/11, I can't disavow facts, man. This is not relevant to copyright infringement, in my opinion. I can't disavow reality, that's not how that works, bro. Denims reading from the letter, why do they attack us in New York and Washington? If Ariel Sharon is a man of peace in the eyes of George Bush, then we are also men of peace. America does not understand the language of manners and principles, so we are addressing it using the language it understands. Denims' response, he's not wrong about that. The USA only understands violence. So yeah, this is crappy stuff that she's saying. It's borderline terrorist support. It's very anti-American, but it's not illegal to be anti-American or to read Osama bin Laden quotes, and it's certainly not relevant to copyright infringement either. Bin Laden's criticisms of the United States are all correct, she said. Despite Twitch's prohibition on terrorist propaganda, Twitch gave Denims a slap on the wrist by banning her for just a day. Completely irrelevant to copyright infringement. I'm gonna keep repeating myself, guys. If you've watched the last two videos reading these lawsuits, you know what I'm gonna say. I'll say it again because I haven't said it in this video. This stuff is hilarious, it's true, it's funny, and I wish Ethan would put it in a content nuke video or talk about it on his podcast and not put it into a legal document that's already very long and full of irrelevant information. Okay, December 12, 2022, in a now deleted video, Denims responded to the December 8th, 2022 pardon me, video of June Nicole Lepine, aka Shoe on Head. Okay, they're mentioning Shoe on Head now in this lawsuit. This video critiqued Balenciaga's advertising campaign that depicted minors in highly sexualized BDSM attire. Rather than acknowledge the widespread concern, Denims took the absurdly grotesque position of defending Balenciaga's advertising campaign and attempted to paint Shoe on Head as homophobic, despite Shoe on Head not mentioning homosexuality whatsoever. Man, why have they put this in here? It actually annoys me a bit. It's like, why do you need all this YouTube drama law in your legal document about copyright infringement? I've got a sneeze, guys. Be back in a second. Okay, sorry about that. Denim's involvement in the public controversy known as ReactGate provides great insight into her willful disregard for copyright. Early 2022, Hassan and Denims, along with other Twitch streamers, received intense criticism for conducting group viewing sessions of third-party copyrighted content without permission. Okay, at least this is relevant to the lawsuit, because again, this shows a pattern of disregard for copyright law. In these group viewing sessions, streamers like Hassan and Denims would watch entire copyrighted works with little to no commentary, sometimes even letting the video play when they were not present or while the streamer was sleeping. The controversy reached a fever pitch when these group viewing sessions involved mainstream television shows and films. February 1, 2022, the online content creator known as JXC released a video entitled Hassan Piker, Jinx, and the Issue of Reaction Content. In the video, JXC drew a distinction between reaction videos that provide substantive critique and/or additional insights into the original work, and lazy reaction videos that resemble group viewing sessions. I believe this is the streamer that, or the YouTuber that Ethan put in his video about when he announced that he was suing these people. Okay, so JXE focused on Hassan's group viewing sessions, including his poverty of commentary, that just means lack of commentary, his penchant for doing an empty chair reaction where he lets the video play while he is completely off screen, and his failure to credit the author of the original video or link to the original content. So this has been a big debate online of like, one good example is recently Asmongold watched a video from a channel with like 30 subscribers or something, and now she has tens of thousands because he showed her video, and obviously she's really grateful for that, but he's credited her for the video, he's linked her channel, so he's really promoting her, and obviously promoting someone doesn't solve all the issues of copyright infringement, but it does at least show that you're willing to credit those people and give them their due and maybe give them some kind of clout from it. Okay, so this, I'm impressed with this paragraph. It's actually relevant in some ways, even though it's talking about Hassan, who is not a defendant in this case, I'll repeat. It is kind of relevant to the topic. Okay, in a now deleted video, Denims defended the unauthorized use of copyrighted content by asserting that viewers prefer watching streamers over original uploads, particularly when the material is curated. Okay, this is good stuff here. She claimed that established fair use standards are irrelevant to live streamers, including Twitch content, and need not be transformative through substantial commentary or editing. Rather, Denims claimed that a streamer's personality alone can justify the unauthorized rebroadcast of copyrighted material. That's a very good paragraph. That shows that Denims basically publicly saying that she doesn't care about copyright law. February the 6th, 2025, Denims and JXE conduct a debate about the propriety of group viewing sessions. This was moderated by the online content creator Chud Logic. Man, Chud Logic, everyone in the sector is getting named in these lawsuits. That's funny. Okay, during the debate, Denims makes several damning statements about her personal perception on the unauthorized use of copyrighted content. Notable moments are listed below. Early in the debate, Denims acknowledges that she uses third-party content as a filler and that it siphons views away from the original. Man, this debate is really going to come back and bite her in the ass, isn't it? Okay, so this is a quote from Denims. I just want to be clear on my opinion on like filler content and stuff. Like, I think filler content, you shouldn't do it. I know I do it as a React streamer, and I try to do it with Vox videos or Vice videos and stuff like that because I'm not directly ripping from one content creator and not like a whole team and stuff. So I guess what she's trying to say here is it's okay to copyright infringe big companies and instead of individuals. And then she goes on to say, most of those videos have like 5 million views. I only get like 500 viewers. Likely I'm not even going to be taking out. I'm taking maybe 50 views from the video. And it's a lot harder to feel like, I guess, bad about that. Man, it's so hard to read her verbatim quotes because of the way she talks. It's like, I guess. Yeah, that was hard to get through. Sorry if that was hard to understand. I'm literally reading exactly the quote. So basically, she's saying she gets less viewers, so she's maybe taking only 50 views away from them. I believe in a court of law, it doesn't really matter if it's 50 views or one view. I mean, that will change the penalty, but it doesn't change the fact that copyright has been infringed. Okay, shortly thereafter, Denims accepts her own bias in the situation and her desire to use third-party content. Maybe I'm coping because I'm a reactor and I want to have that content. Later in the debate, Denims sets forth her theory to justify a group viewing session of third-party content, that Twitch streamers are curators that provide a communal experience of watching content with their audience who do not want to take the time to find YouTube content on their own. As much as this statement is not going to fly in a court of law, I completely agree with Denims here that Twitch streamers are like curators for content, and I've been thinking about this a lot recently with all this debate about copyright and fair use. And one, what's the word? Metaphor, I guess, that I thought about is when you go to a club and you're dancing to music, the DJ is like the curator of the music. So say it's a girl DJ, so she's playing songs that she likes, and actually it's probably good for the artists of the songs that DJs are playing their songs. And you go to see a DJ, say it's, I don't know, Annie Mac, Andy C, whoever, they're playing their curated set of music. I don't know where I'm going with this. I guess I was thinking people like Asmongold and I guess Denims, they are like curating videos rather than music, but it's like how a DJ curates songs, and the best DJs are the ones who play the best songs that everybody likes, I guess. So I agree with her that they are like curators, but that doesn't mean that copyright has not been infringed, and it doesn't mean that they should pay no heed to copyright law or people's like getting permission to use people's content. Let's go to the next part. Um, this is a quote from Denims. You know, I'm sure if you click on a random part of the video, I might not be saying anything, sure, whatever. I might walk away from the screen, but it's like about the communal thing. It's not about the actual show at a certain point. It's like, oh, it's the same reason you watch shows with your friends. You want to watch it with other people, right? Sorry about the accent, but it does actually make it easier for me to read her quotes if I do it in that accent, because it's kind of like the cadence and rhythm of how she speaks. It makes more sense to me if I do it in the accent. Um, so this quote, again, I agree with her. It is a communal thing. It is about being with other people in chat and enjoying something together. It is like going to the movies with your friends and discussing the film. But again, it doesn't mean you can just disregard copyright law, and it doesn't mean that you can use people's content without their permission and not have any consequences. Another Denims quote: I think when it comes to streamers on Twitch, a lot of people go watch streamers on Twitch for their React content almost as a curator, so they don't actually want to go through YouTube themselves and watch a bunch of videos, and they probably never will go through YouTube and click a bunch of videos. They like going to Twitch because they like to have it is like this streamer is curating fun content that I want to watch. Again, completely agree with that. She's absolutely right that, well, it's the same as the previous quote basically. These people are curating videos, there's a communal experience of watching them together, and maybe these people don't want the effort of clicking through videos. But again, legally irrelevant to copyright infringement. I was going to say something else about, oh, so one thing she says here is they probably never will go through YouTube and click a bunch of videos. That may be true in some cases, but you can't really know if it's true or not. And certainly some people who would have gone to YouTube and watched the video if they hadn't seen your stream of it would have. So I don't think that's a very good argument there in terms of defending copyright infringement. Another Denims quote: I think that like people who are watching content on Twitch, curated Twitch content on Twitch, aren't necessarily people that would be watching content on YouTube. Again, true in some cases, but legally irrelevant. I know that she wasn't trying to make a legal argument in this debate. I'm just saying these quotes are not going to look good for her in court. A lot of the time, the reason that they go and watch React streamers is because they don't want to have the effort of going and scrolling through YouTube and clicking on recommends. This is all similar quotes, not going to comment any further. The people who watch Twitch content are specifically here to watch it so they don't have to scroll through YouTube and find a video that they like. Again, maybe true in some cases, but kind of impossible to determine empirically. Denims, however, ultimately concedes that when a viewer watches content curated by a Twitch streamer, it does serve as a substitute for the original. Very true. There's no point of watching something a second time. You already watched it. Maybe like if you're watching it with some other people or something, or it's been a long time, you might rewatch the video. But once you watch the video in one place, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to go back and watch it again. So she kind of self-owns herself here. That's a great quote to have in here. This stuff is great. This is really relevant to the case. It shows that she doesn't care about copyright. It shows that she doesn't care that she's making a market substitute for people and taking traffic and revenue away from the creators. If somebody watches content on someone else's stream, there's a very low likelihood that they're going to go watch it separately and give you the view or the like. So similar thing she's saying here is she's said it multiple times. That's not good for her. Okay, so that was a great section, legally relevant, and it's incredibly powerful that they're using her own quotes from her own mouth to show that she's done this knowingly and basically not cared about the consequences for the original creators. This section I'm going to skip over because it's, as you can see in the title, it's the background of H3 Snark. For anyone who doesn't know, I'll quickly tell you. H3 Snark is a Reddit page of basically a gang of people who hate Ethan Klein, and they talk shit about him on there. They conspire against him. They probably called Child Protective Services on his kids falsely to harass him. It's pretty much a trolling, harassing group. Ethan or his lawyer have decided that it's pertinent and relevant to include the entire law of H3 Snark in this lawsuit. I don't necessarily think it is relevant or pertinent. If they can identify these Snark subreddit moderators, then this kind of is relevant. The one thing that is relevant about this, I'll quickly tell you, is that H3 Snark Reddit were talking about how they wanted to watch the Hassan Piker content nuke without giving views and money to Ethan. So they kind of all conspired to have people watch the stream through Denims, Frogan, and Caseytron and others. So they were all kind of posting on the subreddit, don't watch it here, watch it somewhere else where he doesn't get views and likes and subscribers and super chats, whatever. Basically taking the traffic away from him. Anyway, they go into great detail about the entire history of H3 Snark. There's also a huge section here which is copy pasted from the other lawsuits where they compare Hassan Piker to Hitler, and they actually have pictures of Hitler in the lawsuit, which I find completely ridiculous. This photo is a lot better quality in the other lawsuits, just an interesting side fact there. Maybe because they made it so big here. So this guy is the leader of an Arab country who helped Hitler exterminate the Jews, and they're basically saying Hassan Piker is just like this guy because he presumably doesn't like Jews. I think it's all very silly, very irrelevant, and if I was a judge reading this and looking at these pictures, I would be extremely angry and possibly throw out the lawsuit, or tell them to rewrite it at least. So this is just about how Hassan and Ethan had a podcast together and they fell out over the Israel and Palestine conflict, and as a result of that the audience was split, and kind of half of the audience of the podcast sided with Hassan and decided to hate on Ethan and start harassing him. Then they're skimming over this again because I've covered it in the Caseytron video. This is just about how the subreddit deliberately diverted traffic away from Ethan's video, which is actually relevant and is copyright infringement. These are just screenshots of them posting in the Reddit places where you could watch the video. It's basically like a pirate video site where there's no ads and Ethan doesn't benefit from the views there. And then they're naming specific Discord moderators who said certain things which are incriminating. More shots from Discord. This is the lead moderator of the H3 Snark Reddit. She says, we encourage folks to watch on YouTube, that's YEW YouTube, since it doesn't play ads or contribute to their view counts. Yeah, this is stuff, again, I covered all this in the Caseytron video if you guys want to see it covered in a bit more detail, and I've read all the specifics there. And they do a tutorial of how to download YouTube videos without giving them a view, etc, etc. This again is a copy and pasted segment that I covered in a previous video. This is just about Ethan's long history of trying to DMCA take down various snark posts which he felt infringed his copyright, and how they denied these requests. So this is again relevant to the lawsuit if they can identify these Discord mods. I'm just going to have a drink while I scroll through this. Yeah, so really the hardest video to get through was the Caseytron lawsuit, because there's all this stuff that's copy pasted, and I had to go through it all in that first video. So actually, funnily enough, the shortest legal document of 50 pages will probably be the longest video about this. Okay, this is more Ethan trying to pursue legal action against H3 Snark for harassment. Not really relevant to copyright, but maybe it's good to have it in there to show that H3 Snark really had it in for him and were acting maliciously against him. Okay, then this section I've covered, it is copy pasted again, and this is just Ethan creating the Hassan Piker video and the fact that he copyrighted it before he released it. And this is again a copy and pasted section, and for some reason they think it's pertinent and relevant to say the full plot of Ethan's hour-and-a-half long documentary on Hassan Piker. It is true that the content nuke is the subject of this lawsuit, but I don't see why they need a full pages long synopsis. Like, for me, it would have been perfectly fine to just say this is a documentary criticizing Hassan and Twitch, and maybe this sentence. But look, they say like it's divided into 7 sections. I mean, this would be plenty, but then they tell you like a play-by-play of everything that's in the content nuke. That's 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages going into detail about like Ethan dissing Hassan in the video. That's 4 pages, I think. 5 pages, 6 pages, 7 pages, 8 pages. Like, I would not read this if I was a judge. That might actually help him if the judge sort of skim reads this, like, okay, I don't need to know everything that's in this video. What's that, 9 pages? I may have lost count here, but let's say 10 pages now. 11 pages. Okay, so that's 11 pages, I think, donated, not donated, 11 pages devoted, that's the word I'm looking for, devoted to just in detail saying exactly what's in the video. Like, I don't think it's relevant. Okay, this is a section which is also copy pasted from the other lawsuits, and it's just saying about how Ethan copyrighted his intellectual property, basically. Okay, so this is kind of relevant, and this is probably almost exactly copy pasted from the other. Yeah, it is. I can tell from they're calling Hassan the Grand Mufti, which is completely unprofessional and irrelevant, although funny. So this is about the H3 Snark mods promoting Denims streaming Ethan's copyrighted content. Okay. Now they're talking about the law of fair use, and this is again copy pasted from the other lawsuits, and it just states about the legal definition of fair use. It has four different pillars to it, I guess you could call them, and I went into this in detail in the Caseytron video, so I'm not going to go through it again, but in short, this is the law about fair use and how Denims has broken it, and they're giving quotes from the Warhol case, more 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 quotes from the Warhol case, also quotes from the McGuckin case, Penguin Random House case, Elvis Presley case. Yeah, this is all copy pasted, and it's just about what the law is and how it's been broken here. Blanche v. Coons mentioned. The Matt Hoss case is mentioned. Matt Hoss case and McGuckin case and the Munge case is mentioned. Elvis Presley case mentioned. Zillow case mentioned. Hoss case mentioned again. Harper and Row mentioned. McGuckin mentioned again. Google mentioned and Authors Guild mentioned. National Academy case mentioned. Hoss case referred to again. Okay, and then the next section is called Denims Group Viewing Session Failed to Make a Fair Use of the Countdown Episode. It's readily apparent that the primary and overriding purpose of Denims' use of the Countdown episode was to commercially exploit a group viewing session of the Countdown episode. So, one thing to mention here, the Countdown episode is not the same as the content nuke, I believe. So perhaps Ethan Klein is suing Casey, Tron and Frogan for watching the content nuke and suing Denims for watching something else called the Countdown episode. And I don't know what the Countdown episode is. This is page 47. I'm just going to scroll up again, see if I missed something. No, that is the content nuke that they're giving. So that content nuke synopsis is even less relevant if they're actually talking about, what was it, the Countdown episode. I don't know what that piece of content is, but maybe they're suing her for 2 counts of copyright violation. Okay, so she watched long sections of the Countdown episode with very little interruption, frequently for several minutes at a time. Denims provides an empty chair reaction to the Countdown episode. She says she's going to pee. She lets the Countdown episode play for 2 minutes 21 seconds while she is in the toilet. Okay, so they say her group viewing session was over an hour. Sorry, just wetting the whistle there. During this hour, she provided approximately 4 minutes and 43 seconds of brief and superficial commentary that has little critical bearing on the Countdown episode. So, yeah, I'm interested in this stuff about the Countdown episode because the other 2 lawsuits are about the Hassan content nuke. So this is different stuff. So out of an hour, basically, she did 4.5 minutes of brief and superficial commentary. Yeah, that's definitely not fair use. I've heard that to be super safe with fair use, you need to pause and comment every 4 seconds. So that's definitely not meeting that standard. Okay, and then 43 seconds of partially related commentary, 2 minutes and 12 seconds of unrelated or unintelligible comments. In simple terms, out of a total runtime of over an hour, basically 1 hour, 4 minutes, the Countdown episode played uninterrupted for nearly 88% of the total runtime. Yeah, this is good stuff. This is really nailing her to the cross. She also had the Countdown episode take up approximately 3/4 of the screen, while she only approximately occupies a quarter of the screen. So this is just a reference to how streamers have this little camera in the corner of the screen to show their reaction. And they're saying that her objective was to provide a large and unobstructed view of the Countdown episode to her audience, which further emphasizes her primary purpose was to provide a substitute for the original. That's important language there, substitute, in copyright law. And then they're saying that her use was commercial because she received paid subscriptions, donations, and advertising revenue during the group viewing session. This again is important stuff because she's profiting basically from infringing the copyright, which basically ultimately legally will mean that she owes money to Ethan Klein for the money she made during this stream. Oh, okay. So I think the countdown thing is maybe the video that, when you log into a stream and the stream is not there yet and it says like stream coming soon, maybe it was like she was streaming during the countdown to the nuke. Yeah, I guess so. I guess Ethan is saying that even the countdown footage was copyright. I'm not sure if that's true, but presumably if it's in the lawsuit, it is true. Okay, Denims adds a countdown timer for when the nuke will drop. So yeah, this is about the nuke, but they're also including this like pre-stream placeholder footage, I guess. I don't actually know if it was placeholder footage. It could have been Ethan Klein sort of live streaming with his podcast or whatever, but whatever it was, Denims was watching that before the nuke. Okay, she says, this is a quote from Denims during that time. If you want to watch it, come enjoy the watch party somewhere else. So she's saying, don't give views to Ethan Klein, come and watch it with me. Let's steal his content and he won't benefit from it, but we can still talk about it and enjoy it, and you can pay me money. As to the second fair use factor, the fact that the countdown episode was simultaneously broadcast with Denim's group viewing session does not weigh in her favor. Further, that's difficult, favor, then further right next to it. Further, while containing numerous factual elements, the countdown episode contains numerous creative elements which weigh against fair use. So yeah, they're basically saying their countdown episode, I presume this was Ethan Klein's podcast, and they did like an episode that was about the countdown to the nuke being released. Then they say here, as to the third fair use factor, this factor weighs heavily against fair use. It's readily apparent Denim's use was excessive for any potential criticism of the countdown episode, particularly in light of the minimal level of commentary and highly commercial nature of Denim's group viewing session. The fourth and most important fair use factor weighs heavily against fair use. So in these sections, they're referencing the 4 pillars of fair use, which I've talked about in the previous video. It is readily apparent that Denims intended and succeeded to provide a market substitute for the countdown episode for the reasons set forth below. A. Broadcasting her group viewing session at the same time the countdown episode was broadcast. Okay, so this is becoming clear to me now as I'm reading. I think I'm right. So I believe this was an episode of the H3 podcast, and she was watching it live before the nuke dropped. B. Showing nearly the entire countdown episode with minimal commentary. C. The first inducement post, the second inducement post, and the third inducement post by the H3 Snark mods. So this is presumably 3 posts they made on Reddit where they were telling people to go and watch Denims instead of watching Ethan Klein's YouTube release. And finally, D, due to Denims siphoning the audience for the countdown episode to her group viewing session, Ethan lost views and advertising revenue he would have ordinarily received from the individuals who watched Denim's group viewing session instead of the countdown episode. E. Okay, there's another one. If Denim's conduct were to become widespread, i.e., basically they're saying if a lot of people simultaneously broadcasted a TEI podcast episode with minimal commentary, it would result in further lost views and advertising revenue to Ethan. Got to sneeze again, guys. Sorry, I'll be right back. Have a sip of the tea there and get back to it. Okay, so yeah, they're just saying if everybody did this, Ethan would not make any money, which is absolutely true. And then they're saying now that Denims failed to make fair use of the nuke. Um, Presumably this is somewhat copy-pasted stuff, so I might skip through it. I'm presuming that this section is going to be very similar to the last section, but instead of talking about the countdown episode, this is talking about the nuke. Oh, okay, this is interesting. So I'm going to skim read this, but if there's anything different or interesting, I will pick it out. So, you know what, this is quite funny stuff. Okay, this group viewing session, they're saying, exemplifies Denim's beliefs about copyright that she expressed during ReactGate, aka the Chud Logic debate. Her group viewing session of the nuke epitomizes 1. Her unfounded opinion that copyright infringement and fair use principles are inapplicable in the context of live streaming, particularly on Twitch. 2. Her misguided notion that she is not obligated to transform a copyrighted work with substantial critical commentary and editing. And 3. Her narcissistic and misplaced sense of privilege that her personality is sufficient to justify the highly commercial, unauthorized exploitation of a copyrighted work in its entirety. That is a brutal sentence. Narcissistic and misplaced sense of privilege. That's brutal. And this is mean and petty, obviously, but this part is relevant to the subject matter, so I'll let them get away with that one. And I think, like, just to recap on this, I think using brutal language like this that completely clowns on Denims is absolutely fine if you're making a killer legal point, which they are here. But when it's just like pages and pages, like I talked about this in the Frogan lawsuit, they basically brought up every embarrassing moment from her past, that she had an Israeli therapist in the past who she didn't get along with, that she failed one of her modules in university, and that stuff does not have any legal merit or relevance. So it annoys me when it's just irrelevant stuff that's just clowning on people for the sake of it. But if you're making a really good legal point, you can inject a bit of sass in there and say some mean stuff when it's relevant. Like, that's great, that's perfectly fine. But yeah, I've been getting annoyed with some of the irrelevant stuff in these suits. This one, I'm going to say so far, this one seems to be the most relevant and to the point. I was worried that they were going to have Denim's life story and every embarrassing thing she's ever done, but all the stuff in this lawsuit seems to be relevant to, or almost all of it seems to be relevant to her not giving a damn about copyright law and thinking she's above the law. Okay, let's get back to this. Just wanted to have a little rant there. Denim's group viewing session of the nuke was the pinnacle of her career. Okay, this is very relevant. At its peak, Denim's group viewing session of the nuke received 45,800 concurrent viewers. This was exponentially more viewers than Denim's ever received in her entire career. Her group viewing session also put her online career into overdrive. In the days leading up to her group viewing session, Denim's peak concurrent viewers ranged from approximately 3,000 to 4,000. After her group viewing session of the nuke, her current viewers range from 5,000 to 6,500, basically. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but that's roughly what it is. So basically, her viewership has gone up about 50%. Below are true and correct screenshots from the page for Denim's Twitch channel on Twitch Tracker. I said this in the previous video, when they use screenshots they have to say these are true and correct, like they haven't doctored them or edited them, it's just a procedural thing. But before we look at that, this stuff's really relevant because basically she's getting more money and more viewers as a result of her stealing Ethan's content. So this is more like evidence for Ethan getting money from her basically, because it's like 45,000, that is crazy. That's like 10x what she normally gets. So basically, let's say 5,000 of these viewers are her normal viewers, and then she's potentially stealing 40,000 views from Ethan's thing, and that's nothing to sniff at. Yeah, that's a great paragraph. Big fan of that. Okay, these are screenshots. So this is probably, what's the website called? Social Blade. This is probably the Denims Social Blade or a very similar website, and this is just showing her views and how it's gone crazy after January the 25th when he released that video. So yeah, that's good stuff. That's data to back it all up. Um, they're just saying here that she's obviously providing a market substitute, which is true. Then they're saying that Denims has actually said that she's making a market substitute. So she entitled the stream Ethan Klein Hassan Content Nuke Watch Party. This is not a drill, all in caps lock. And okay, this is the quote from earlier. She's saying, I'm going to stream it since he confirmed it's coming out today. We're going to stream it. This was in reply to a chatter saying, we're relying on you to stay live so we don't give more views to the nuke. So she's read this comment where people are acknowledging that she will be taking views away from Ethan Klein that they don't want to give him, and she agrees with it. That's very damning. Okay, this is just more about the title of our stream. And she responds to a chatter by saying, unfortunately, we are watching the content nuke. This is not super relevant, but it does evidence that she knows what she's doing. Okay, this is one of the most damning quotes from Denims. And this lawsuit is fascinating. How many terrible things she's said legally. Like, she's like the number one witness against herself. Okay, this quote's brutal. Well, guys, if you enjoyed not giving any views to that terrible video, follow, subscribe, throw a prime if you like the content, if you enjoyed your time here. So again, blatantly acknowledging that she has created a market substitute which deprives him of views and revenue. And in the following breath, soliciting donations and financial recompense for what she's done for the content theft. And then we have another quote here. I appreciated you guys tuning in with me because I'm going to be honest, I did not want to watch that by myself. That's not as relevant, but it's good stuff to have in there. Okay, then here's another Denims quote. Later after streaming, I found out I got signal boosted by Hassan, Hascord, and the subreddit H3 Snark. And I know all of those people didn't want to give the video another view, which is why they watched it with me, and probably a lot of people because they ended their H3 show immediately before releasing the video, so there was probably a lot of people that came to watch it here because they wanted to see what someone who would disagree with it would say. So yeah, they've underlined and put in bold the relevant parts, but again, this is her blatantly acknowledging that she's intentionally taken views, taken money from Ethan Klein by stealing his content, and she's acknowledged that she's aware a lot of people wanted to steal his content and not give him the recognition or the money he deserved. And this is absolutely brutal for her. I think out of all the lawsuits I've seen, this is the most legally solid one. Not when I say out of the lawsuits I've seen, I don't mean every lawsuit ever. I mean out of the three, Ethan Klein v. Casey Tron-Frogan Denims, like the Denims one is the most damning. Okay, she attempts to feign ignorance of H3 Snark. But yeah, this is another part. She named H3 Snark and she says she's aware that they've been directing people to her video. So that's another relevant part there. Just gonna have a sip here. Yeah, sorry I've got to stop and have a sip, but my mouth really does get dry doing these long videos of talking and reading. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, so this is interesting. They basically say that at the end of her stream, when she closed the window, it showed that she had the H3 Snark subreddit on her screen the entire time. That's quite interesting. Okay, she began viewing the nuke 1 minute after the nuke was released to the public. This is legally relevant because she's not watching it after when people have already had a chance to watch it. She's literally watching it at the exact same time that it's premiering. And they're just saying that she's intentionally siphoning viewers away. This is somewhat copy and pasted from the other lawsuits. Okay, 74 separate occasions. She viewed the nuke for 30 seconds or more with no commentary whatsoever, or at most an unintelligible word or phrase. 70 minutes of the nuke. So basically 70% of, I guess the nuke is 100 minutes long then, if that's 70%. So 70% she didn't comment on or transform, basically. And then they had this in the Frogan lawsuit. They basically do this is all the timestamps from her video where she didn't comment. 1 second, total duration. So basically they've literally catalogued all the timestamps. So she didn't talk for 42 seconds here, then she didn't talk for 135 seconds. I wonder if that's the longest one. But yeah, they really go into detail with this stuff, and this stuff is relevant and important. Okay, 139 seconds, that's a new record. But as I said earlier, really to be safe from copyright and to make it fair use, you want to be commenting pretty much every 4 seconds. 78 seconds, 107 seconds, 105 seconds. Yeah, it's not looking good for her, is it? And I actually feel a bit sorry for the people who had to watch her stream and make this document. It must have been a pain in the ass job. 115 seconds, okay. So then they just summarize this and they say that the primary purpose of her stream was to provide a substitute, aka a market substitute, and any commentary was merely an afterthought. And they keep repeating that phrase throughout these lawsuits. During her group viewing session, okay, I think this is going to be another case of Denims being the #1 prosecution witness against Denims. So she admits she is not providing sufficient commentary because she does not want to pause frequently. This further emphasizes the primary purpose of her session was to watch the nuke and commentary was an afterthought. And then they've got a quote from Denims. basically grassing herself up. If I sat here and explained why he was wrong for like half of these things, I would be here for another 20 hours. I've gone in and tried to explain why he's incorrect on like 1 in every 10 incorrect takes, because I'm not trying to spend an entire week here. So she's basically saying she doesn't have time to transform the content and use it fairly. So she doesn't have time to obey the law, basically. And now she's going to pay for it, hopefully. A second quote from her: I don't even understand what to say about, because yeah, this is wrong because of this, another wrong take, another wrong take. Okay, well, I just paused it for 10 minutes. I feel bad pausing it again because surely there'll be something better here. What does that even mean? Okay, she failed to address the majority of points. Okay, this is similar to the Frogan lawsuit. They basically give a list of all the sections of the content nuke that are not addressed by like the commentary of the person who's being sued. I'm going to skip over this because it's quite boring. This is again just like a repeat of the synopsis of the content nuke. So I guess it served some purpose for them to type that up at least. Okay, Denims mocks the nuke for making fair use of third-party clips, and she says, isn't it weird that a lot of these clips are like 5 seconds short, not 5 seconds long, 5 seconds short? So basically, Ethan's using 5-second clips because he's adhering to copyright law and using things fairly. And she doesn't understand that, obviously. Okay, when she does speak, most of her statements are brief, blah blah blah, have no critical bearing or minimal critical bearing, and they're going to give examples. So here's a load of timestamps of her apparently slurring her words or being incoherent. Then they've got a load of timestamps here of her talking with chat about things that are not related to the video she's watching. Okay, here's more like stuff. She's basically talking about stuff that's not relevant to the video at all these timestamps. She frequently makes superficial comments, blah blah blah. This is more of the same, timestamps of her saying irrelevant things that are not addressing what's in the video. Since she did not pre-screen the nuke, supposedly it's good practice for fair use to watch the video before you comment on it so that you have better commentary. So that's just a reference to her being confused about what she's watching at various timestamps. We are at page 60 of 80, by the way, guys. Okay, they're just saying here that she should have watched it before. This is more of the same. This is them just saying things she said that are inaccurate about the nuke. I'm not particularly interested in this stuff. I don't think it's very relevant to copyright infringement, really. Okay, more YouTube drama in here. Destiny mentioned and Keffel's mentioned. I'm going to skim over this stuff. I really don't care in terms of... I care, but it's just silly, funny stuff that I don't think should be in a legal document, as I've said. Okay, she goes off on unrelated tangents. She's talking about Frogan. She's strawmanning. This is all just basically more synopsis of what's in the Hassan content nuke. She's talking about Frogan again. She's talking about Gaza. Denims again makes brief, blithe, and unsubstantiated assertions. The vast majority of these remarks are misleading or false. So I guess this is kind of legally relevant because if something is for educational purposes, it's much more likely to be seen as fair use. So say you're critiquing something and you're saying why it's wrong and you're correct about what you're saying, courts will have a very much more charitable view of copyright infringement if it's done for the purposes of correcting misinformation. So the point of what they're saying here is basically the things that Denims have said are factually untrue, so there's no educational value to it, therefore the court should have a dim view of it rather than seeing it as something educational. Okay, this is just more stuff she's said during the stream. I'm just skimming over this and it's just like all the YouTube drama of the last 6 months condensed into a legal document. Okay, Denims claims that propaganda does not require lying. Blah, blah, blah. Denims repeatedly makes the misleading claim that Ethan performed a Nazi salute. Again, this stuff is reading like a defamation lawsuit, and this is not a defamation lawsuit, it's a copyright lawsuit. But I guess they just went to town on this. It really does, like Denims said on her stream, it feels like Ethan wrote this document. And again, I don't love Denims. I think she looks very nice. I don't agree with her politics. I don't agree with her stance on copyright law. I think she's a bit of a grifter. But many things she's said in this lawsuit I do agree with. And what she said on her stream the other day is that she suspects that Ethan Klein has written this document, and honestly, I agree with her. I think he has written a lot of this stuff, or at least had a heavy editorial hand in this lawsuit, because, like I keep saying, a lot of this stuff would be great if it was in a content nuke or on the H3 podcast, and I would watch it and I would laugh and I would maybe super chat and we could clown on these people. But it really doesn't feel like when you're in a legal document and you say Denims is a LARPer, like it just doesn't feel professional, or it doesn't feel like it's going to connect with a judge or a jury. I'm just going to keep skimming over this because it's basically a long list of all the things that Denims said that they didn't agree with. Denims misleadingly claims that the Houthis were designated as a terrorist organization, blah blah blah, I don't care. Not relevant to copyright really. I guess like I said earlier, saying all these wrong, objectively wrong things that she said could be like legally relevant in that it shows it's not an educational work basically. Blah blah blah, Israeli hostages. Blah blah blah, Amnesty International. Okay, yeah, they did this in the other documents. The United Nations has said this. The United Nations has said that, therefore Ethan's right. Not really relevant. Denim's statement is false, they're saying. Denim's talking about the New York Times. Denim's talking about sexual violence, but the UN says that there was sexual violence, blah blah blah, heard it all before. The United Kingdom's Minister for the Middle East said that clear and convincing evidence of sexual and gender-based violence on October the 7th. Heard it all before. I don't think this is relevant at all to copyright. but they wanted to get it in there. Ethan discusses Frogan's statements, blah blah blah. Yeah, sorry guys, I'm just gonna skim through this because it's gonna annoy me, and I've heard all this stuff before, and it's again stuff that should be in a YouTube drama video. Yeah, they're basically just giving a long list of all the things she's said that are false. And I guess, as I said, I guess this is just to say that there's no sort of public value to Denim's commentary and that it's not educational because it's false. And then they're calling her a bigot because she's anti-Zionist. They're saying anti-Zionists are anti-Semitic. Okay, more about the Jews being kicked out of countries. I'm not trying to be glib about this, it's just I've read all this stuff several times over in the other lawsuits. Okay, Denims says Ethan is scared of Arabs. Yeah, I'm not trying to, I just want to be clear, I'm not trying to diminish the suffering of the Jews or the Palestinians. I think both sides have done stuff wrong and it's absolutely tragic what's going on over there. And I obviously think October the 7th was awful, and I think Israel's done some awful things to the Palestinians. I'm not trying to be glib and diminish all of that. I do take it seriously and I think it's really sad. I'm just skipping over it because it's not relevant to copyright infringement in my opinion. And I've read 3 of these documents that are full of random stuff. Okay, Denim's trying to paint Ethan as an anti-Semite even though he's Jewish. Denim's supporting Dan Clancy. Oh my god, this is gonna make me mad. Just listen to this sentence. It's about Dan Clancy. When Ethan critiques Clancy's obsession with e-girls on the Twitch platform, I imagine being a judge and reading Clancy's obsession with e-girls on the Twitch platform. Imagine you're like a 70-year-old judge and you're maybe like into golf or like I don't know what you're into fishing, and you just read this sentence, like, this is what I'm talking about, and this is what I'm critical of in these lawsuits. It's like it is written by like a Reddit meme lord at some points, like, e-girls, like, yeah, it's just internet slang. Okay, Dan Clancy has lecherous behavior, and then they use the word e-girls again. Man, that makes me cringe. Sorry, Ethan, I love you, you're hilarious, but maybe stick to the comedy, not the lawsuits. I mean, having said that, there's a lot of great legal stuff in here, but don't inject memes into your lawsuit, guys. Like, any of this stuff, if this was in a British lawsuit, the lawsuit would not go anywhere. It would be completely unprofessional, inappropriate, petty. It would probably get you put in contempt of court if you read something like this in a British court. And maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe there should be more like humor and levity in British courts, but here we take the law very seriously and you can't get away with this kind of thing. Okay, I'm skimming through this. They're basically saying Denims has taken revenue from Ethan Klein, which is pretty clearly true in my opinion. This is more the 4 pillars of fair use. Pretty similar to what they said earlier. She showed long, unadulterated segments of the nuke. Market substitute, that's the really big point here that we've covered. And then they're talking about the inducement by the H3 Snark subreddit. Denim's conduct did become widespread. Several other members of Hassan's waiting room. Again, it just makes me cringe that these three words are in a lawsuit. I'm trying to think of a better way to describe them, but they've obviously used this term just to be petty to the people involved, but just makes me cringe to use like internet slang in a lawsuit. Okay, so this is probably going to be copy and pasted from the other two, but we're getting to the end now, guys. 2 more pages to go. First claim for relief. This is just saying that Ethan owns the copyright to the video, which is all true. He's registered his copyright. He did not grant a license, authorization, or consent to Denims to exploit his copyrighted material. Due to the copyright infringement, Ethan has suffered damages in amount to be established at trial. Due to her copyright infringement, she obtained profits she would not have realized but for her infringement of Ethan's copyright. Absolutely true and demonstrably true. The infringement was willful, intentional, malicious, and/or reckless. It's not reckless because she knew what she was doing and she repeatedly said she knew what she was doing, so that's really bad for her. And then here's what they're asking for, which will probably be copy and pasted from the Frogan and Caseytron lawsuits. They're talking about the snark mods. Okay, so yeah, this is copy and pasted, but I'll read it again here anyway, because this is what they're asking for from the court. So Ethan wants the defendant's profits plus his losses as of the copyright infringement of the countdown episode, and the exact same sentence but copyright infringement of the nuke. So statutory damages in the amount of 150,000. It could be more than that, but that's the guideline amount in the 17 USC section 504. And also, this is going to be the expensive part for Denims. Ethan will be awarded reasonable attorney's fees and costs under 17 USC section 505 because he copyrighted the video before he released it. Very clever, Mr. Klein. And prejudgment interest is allowed by law. I believe that's like interest on the money he spent. And any further relief as the court deems proper. And then they're asking for a jury trial, and that's it. We got through it, guys. Believe this is Ethan Klein's lawyer, attorneys for plaintiff Ted Entertainment Incorporated. So yeah, quick summary. I believe that this of the 3 lawsuits was the most damning, the most evidence packed, and just the best one legally, and it had minimal amounts of petty bullshit, which the most egregious example of that was the Frogan one, where they talked about all these random incidents from her past. Let's get some pictures of Denims up while we talk about this. Yeah, so the Frogan lawsuit was by far the most petty and irrelevant in my opinion. This one actually managed to mostly keep to the point, and it had tons of really good info where Denims herself is talking about how she's breaking the law. She's said things since the trial which are damning. She's basically said she knows she was stealing, but it's okay because he's a bigger creator than her. And she's basically said it's okay to steal from rich people, which is not really what you want to be saying before a lawsuit where you've stolen someone's content and profited from it. But anyway, good luck, Denims. I'm looking forward to seeing more of you, my darling. And thanks all you guys for watching. Thanks for subscribing and commenting. Please do comment. Tell me what was good or bad about the video. Tell me what you think. And tell me what you'd like to see in future videos. Love you all. Goodbye. See you next time.